If you are a people pleaser or you have people pleaser tendencies, today's podcast episode is for you because I'm going to share with you a step-by-step process that you can incorporate into your life for you to recover from being a people pleaser to step into living a life for you, a life that feels authentic, that feels good, that frees you from constantly needing to please everyone around you and begin pleasing yourself. And the beautiful thing is that when you start pleasing yourself, you'll not only free yourself, but the people around you are going to sense a new level of authenticity and realness and rawness within you. You'll be able to take better care of them in a new way because you take care of yourself. But before we get into these 7 steps of how you can recover from being a people pleaser and start living in more authenticity as the real you, what is the reason that we become people pleasers? And I have been a people pleaser my entire life, and I am currently calling myself a recovering people pleaser because I've, for the last many years, been practicing these different tools that I'm going to share with you today. And the reason we become people pleasers has to do with the environments that we grew up in. A lot of us made ourselves believe or were taught as children that in order for us to get love from others, we had to make sure that they were happy, right? Whenever we did something good for them, they would praise us, they would give us love. And so our conditioning from childhood is that in order for us to be loved as humans, as individuals, we have to do good things for other people. For some of us, it may be fear of rejection, that if we don't please everyone, we're going to get rejected. And because we potentially haven't fully learned to love ourselves yet, we will determine our self-worth and how valuable we are as humans depending on how other people feel about us. And the beauty about self-development work and healing work is that the more we learn to love ourselves, the less we will need other people's validation in order for us to feel worthy and good enough as humans. We're, of course, humans, so of course, it's a natural ingrained instinct for a human to want other people to like us, especially the people that are close to us. But the more we learn to love ourselves, the more we understand ourselves, the more we can stand strong and in our power if someone does not like our behavior or the way that we go about our life. And the third reason I want to share with you that I think a lot of us become people pleasers to seek validation, right? When we do good things, then we get validated for the good that we do, and that feels good. And again, it's probably a natural human instinct to want that. But again, the more we validate ourselves, the less we're going to need that validation from others. And I just want to say that I think, for me at least, even though I have, through this work of learning to recovering from being a people pleaser and learning to love myself, have become more, let's say, selfish in certain ways, because there's certain things which we'll go over on how you can do as well later in this episode. There's certain things that are just non-negotiable for me that I need, that I'm clear on in my life, which then sometimes makes me say no to certain things that other people want for me to do. Even though in certain ways like that, I have become more selfish, I also believe that because I no longer have these hidden costs that come from being a people pleaser, which often shows up as resentment. If we keep doing good things to please someone and we're potentially not, it doesn't feel like we're doing it because we actually want it. We're doing it because we want to people please the person, but also potentially we're not getting in return what we're giving. There can build up this resentment. And I believe that when I act out of authentic wanting to do good things for someone, or authentically saying no when I need to say no to take care of me, I am capable and able to be more of a loving person for the people that are around me, because it's authentic, it's true, it's real, and energy can be felt. I know that even though as a kid I would please everyone constantly, it can be felt in the energy, right? If I had built up resistance, even though I was smiling, that other person can subconsciously feel that I have built up resentment towards them. Even though no words are said, there may be questioning it. I believe that it will be felt if I'm people pleasing them without it being authentically what I actually deep down feel is the right thing for me. Other hidden costs can be burnout and just like this lack of authenticity and feeling like we're not living in alignment with our truths, which really just keeps us from living an authentic life. And I don't think anything feels better than when we get to live in an authentic life. If we keep pretending that we are something that we aren't, if we keep hiding ourselves, hiding what we want, it will never feel as good as when we get to live authentically. And now I do just want to share with you some signs that you may be a people pleaser. In the case that some of you out there are a little bit unsure. Of course, there's different degrees of how much of a people pleaser we are. And I think we all are to some degree. And I think if you're listening to my podcast and you're wanting to grow, I think we're all to some degree have a little bit of people pleaser in us. Unless you're fully healed, then I want to learn from you. One is that you say yes when actually what you want is you want to say no. I've done this a lot in my past. I'm still learning to get better at it. Two is that you feel guilty when you start setting boundaries. And I do think that when you start setting boundaries, which I'll share with you how you can do a little bit later in this episode, I think it's normal that at first you really have to help yourself through it. When I've been learning to set boundaries, let's say I, for the first time, have set a certain boundary, it will feel uncomfortable because I will feel like I have done something wrong. But really, it's just because I'm learning to live in alignment with what I actually want. And sometimes the person's like literally nothing. And other times there will be some resistance that will be met from a person who potentially has always been able to get you to do whatever they want. So it may feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but if it's done through love, right? We can set boundaries with love. It can feel like you need to be harsh about it or rude about it, but really it has nothing to do with the other person. If you've been people pleasing them, it's not their fault. It's ours. It is us that have not yet learned to set boundaries. So it's about learning to do it in a really loving way. And I'll share an episode that I had with my girlfriend this week, which was just really beautiful. I was really afraid of sharing something, and me being afraid, but sharing it anyway was really, really a beautiful experience. So the second sign that you're a people pleaser could be that you feel guilty whenever you do set a boundary. Third is that you consistently put other people's needs above your own. And I know that if you're a mother, of course, many of you beautiful women out there who have children that you're taking care of, that is something that you, of course, will do because you have so much love towards your child. But I still think it's very important that you, let's say, take those 30 minutes for your workout if you know that that's going to make you a better mother for the rest of the day, that you find a way to make that one little thing a day possible for you so that you can be there for your children for the rest of the day. I've had so many incredible women in my challenges. I run these. If you're new here, I run these challenges every single month where I give people who join workout programs, new journaling challenges, all of my recipes, as well as a nutritional guide so that you can figure out your macros if you have certain fitness goals. And we jump on these calls every week, and every day we chat inside of our group. And so many of these moms have started finding solutions as to how they can just get sometimes 5 minutes or 30 minutes to do something that's self-loving for them. And they have just felt the compound effect of that for the rest of their day, and how it also has impacted their children's lives. Now their children wants to work out with them or start being curious about healthy nutritional choices. And it's beautiful how it really can change the people's lives that are around you when you do something like that. And I also want to share, if you are a people pleaser like I have been and still am, in the way that you feel like for instance, what you have to offer isn't as valuable as what someone else has to offer in a conversation, let's say. Or if you know that the people you are with enjoy this specific kind of topic, and you're honestly not really interested in that, but you're interested in other topics, that you then just shut your mouth because you just let the other people speak and you stay quiet. And I'm talking from my own experience here, because I'm someone, when I go back to Denmark and I have dinners with my family, they'll often speak about certain topics. For instance, they've all bought houses, and the thing that they do is they buy like a broken down house. My older brother has done this now. My youngest brother just bought his first apartment, old apartment, so that he's rebuilding it. And my mom has, and my dad also, they've done it throughout my childhood. Bought an old house, renovated it, and then eventually sold it, and that's how they make money. And so every time I go to Denmark, someone's doing some sort of home project, and that's what we talk about over family dinners. And to be completely honest with you, I have so much respect that that's what they do, and I think it's badass. I think it's so cool, and I've been in a lot of these conversations and I speak with them about it. But at one point I'm like, but it's not my deepest interest. But because I know that they are so passionate about talking about that and all these renovations and stuff, I've just listened and spoken a little bit, but kept quiet. And it's not like a new thing. Even before my oldest brother bought his first house and renovated, it would be like other things we would talk about. I've just always not spoken as much as maybe some of the other people, some of my other family members. And I was speaking with my mom about this when I was in Denmark for Christmas, and I shared with her how sometimes I feel a little bit like I don't fit in, because it feels like what I'm really passionate about isn't really what's spoken about, and I don't want to bother people to start speaking about certain things that I'm passionate about. And she explained this really powerful thing to me, which I think a lot of us can use, is that if you share your truth, if you share what's on your mind, don't you think you would add value to the conversation? Don't you think it would help the other people that are around you? Even though that may not be their passion, don't you think it would actually add if you start speaking up a little bit more? If you start sharing your whatever you're thinking? And I'd always thought, oh, that would be a bother. But her just saying that, as obvious as it sounds, it shifted something in me. What if I were to ask my older brother a deeper question? Something that I wanted to know about his soul. Maybe he would make fun of me at first. Maybe he wouldn't want to answer, whatever. But what if I actually started asking him really deep questions, even though that's so not what we typically would do at a family dinner in that sense? We have done that as well. My mom and I are both self-development nerds. So there has been a lot of times where we've talked about that, but just like the bigger family dinners where more people are involved, that's typically not what we talk about. So I wanted to share that because maybe you're someone who stays quiet too, and that's a form of your people pleasing too. You only talk about the things that the people in your environment are talking about. But what do you think would actually happen if you started speaking up and started sharing the things that you are passionate about and doing it confidently? So instead of wanting to please them with the conversation, you actually add something new. This was a complete side tangent, but it does lead into my final thought that I wanted to share with you about signs that you're a people pleaser, which is the fear of either making people uncomfortable or disappointing them. However, let's get into the 7 different steps that you can use to recover from being a people pleaser. And I think step 1 that's really important is getting clear about who you are and what you want. So you can journal on this or just reflect on it. I highly recommend you journal on it. Big journaler, which I have a new journal coming out for my March Transformation Challenge. And if you want to join us, you can sign up in the link below. I'll leave a link there. However, a question that you can ask yourself is, if no one else's opinions mattered, if no one was going to say anything about how you should live your life, how would you live it? How would you act in certain situations? What would you say yes to? How would you spend your time? What would you do differently? And I think, like I've mentioned so many times, it's so important to understand and have awareness on where we're at and what we actually want so that we can start just making those little choices differently. And I think even if we don't commit to making certain things to act differently, I think just simply having that awareness of what it is that we actually want, we will be more capable and able and willing to take those little baby action steps that are going to eventually align us with these things that we actually want. Without awareness, it's so much harder to take action. Step number 2 is setting and committing to boundaries. And something that we gotta understand is that when we set boundaries, it's not selfish, it's self-loving. It's really self-loving. And the people that you will want around you, if you have a growth mindset, which I know you do, if you are listening to my podcast, they will want you to choose what's good for you. And you can expect some pushback from certain people, but those are the people who have benefited from you always saying yes, always being there whenever they asked. Recovering from people pleasing doesn't mean that you don't do good things for others, but you will do it out of the love from your heart. You will do it when it feels right to you. And you'll probably be way more capable of doing it and doing the right things because you will, first of all, from step 1, have been clear on what those things are. And secondly, because you set boundaries, you'll have more energy towards doing the right things and not doing all the things, because that will just leave you burned out, like I mentioned earlier. And we can make it hard on ourselves in our head, but it can be as simple as saying, I really appreciate you asking, but I can't do that at this moment. Or I really have so much going on at the moment. I am so passionate about a lot of the things that I'm doing at the moment. And unfortunately, my time just doesn't allow me to take on more things if it's something that you just can't commit to because it's going to take too much time. Many people say you should just say, no, I can't do that. But I also like just being loving about it, not making excuses, which is step number 3, which has to do with not over explaining and justifying. But I believe that you can do it short and sweet and loving at the same time. It doesn't have to be short and rude, right? I really like to not lie. I want to be a person that doesn't lie. So if I am telling someone that I can't do something, I'll be really loving and kind about it, but I won't lie. Some people will say, I can't do that because of, and then they'll come up with some excuse, but I'd rather just share that I can't do it and send them love. It could be that I can't do it literally because I don't have enough time to do it, then I'll share that with them, or that I'm having a really busy period, then I will share that with them. But there's no need to over explaining it and justifying it to make us feel good. And I've really learned that it only is more good feeling for the recipient and for me too when it's just short and to the point. And it helps you just stand in your power. I, in my life recently, got, let's just call it a massive life lesson on just always having the biggest trust in every human and always knowing that was it. For me, it was a deep grained belief that all humans have the kindest of hearts because I always act out of love. And I could not comprehend that someone would not have the same intentions as me. I knew that there are people in the world who did bad stuff, obviously, but I just knew that they were doing that for a reason. And I still believe in the best in people. But recently I got burned through an experience. And I, since then, have really been learning and stepping in to more this power. And so since this big life lesson, I have been really paying attention to how I feel in different relationships and how I show up and listen to my gut and trust it and speak up for myself a lot more in different life situations. And so to give you an example, I had for long time this feeling that this financial advisor and these financial investments that I was making towards my future. To give you a little context, 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start investing, and I get connected with this female finance advisor. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, since it's a female finance advisor and she sounds so freaking pro, everything she said always made sense. And I was just proud of myself for putting aside this money every single month into this thing. But then about a year ago, I started questioning it a little bit, and I reached out to her, and she shared with me a couple of things, and that just all sounded so great. But then one day I decide, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. And I do a deep dive into investing and deep dive into what the plan I currently had and deep dive into what the absolute best plan would be for me, or how to best invest my money. I was like, I'm not going to not understand this and then just give my money to someone else who I just will blindly believe that the choices she's making is going to be good for me. And as I went into that deep dive, I realized many things, but said short, this plan was definitely not the best plan for me. What I have been paying for these past 2 years, we're talking thousands of dollars, have gone to commissions and fees. That is a part of this type of investment that it takes a couple of years for the money actually to show up and start compound effecting inside of your account. And I also realized that I needed a completely different type of investment plan, which I now have created and I'm very happy about. Now, for the third time, I reach out to this woman, sharing a very clear, to the point, loving, but very clear email stating that I want to cancel. I had previously wanted to cancel, but because I still didn't know really what I was canceling, what I had been a part of in this plan, and then she'd always wanted to get on the phone with me and then convinced me otherwise, I've never stuck to my, hey, I want to cancel this thing. This time, very good. And yes, she wanted to jump on a call with me. I respond, I would like to move forward with canceling this policy in a loving way, obviously. And by doing that, this is again a little bit of a side tangent. I've now lost the thousands of dollars that I've put in, but it is so much better for me to cancel that now than to continue paying her. And yes, when I'm 60, it still would compound affect my money, but as you probably can tell if you're a finance expert, I'm still learning about this field. I'm still getting to understand everything within this investment world and just money, period. But I'm doing my best. And also, it's much better to cancel now and no longer pay someone who I now find out we're not on the same page about what's smart to do with my money at this stage of my life. So I cancel the policy, now start investing in something that is more aligned with, well, I've done so much research, but what the most successful investors in the world share that someone like me specifically should do at this stage of my life. But all of that to say that because I am so grateful that I got this beautiful lesson in needing to trust my intuition and stand more in my power instead of being fearful of what others may think or say, I was able to communicate this needing to cancel this policy in a very different way. And she responded in a very different way. She was very respectful back, but she could tell that I had made up my mind basically. So it makes it easier on both. And also to share that it's better to do it now. Parties. Obviously, she would have liked for me to stay in the policy and stay with her than to wait. I think in relationships, if you don't set boundaries, eventually the relationship can break. If I have had something on my mind in a loving relationship, in a good relationship, and it has been months of me just having it in the back of my mind and I haven't shared it because I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to upset them, right? It just builds up in my mind. It becomes this way bigger problem. And it, again, like I mentioned, energy is real. So it's as if this tension, little by little, is built up because I haven't spoken up what I need. When in these loving relationships that I've been so grateful that I have had and still have many of, and where I get to share something from a loving place, I will typically say, if I'm scared, I'll say, I'm a little bit afraid of sharing this, but it's very important for me to share because I'm learning to share my truth, and I'm hoping you will help me navigate something, whatever that is. What often happens is that when I enter the conversation through a really loving and all guards, walls down, they will also put their guards down. If it's a person that is just only has ego and isn't able to speak about deep things, some people it's hard to have conversations like that with. But if it's someone close to you and you're listening to this podcast episode, I bet that you have a lot of people close to you that you can do that with. And if not, they will come to you as you start doing this work, because you're going to attract people that are aligned with your energy. When you do this inner work, it may take some time, but trust me, it will happen. It will come to you, also because you're going to start taking bolder actions towards meeting other growth-minded people. But when you share what's on your mind, what you need, what you're working on, and what potentially makes you feel uncomfortable, first of all, always stay on your own side. You don't want to say, you do this and this and this, and that is shitty. No, you say, when we do blah, 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 it makes me feel blah, blah, blah. So staying on your side. And what I often like, because I've done a lot of self-development work, which I'm sure you have as well, I can say, so when I was a child, let's just say, felt like I wasn't heard and understood. And so in these situations, it's not that you're doing anything wrong, or maybe you need to say that, maybe you don't, but it will make me feel like I'm not being heard or understood. Is there a way that we potentially can work together in solving this challenge so that moving forward, we can navigate it together? And oftentimes what happens is that the other person will then share their side of the story, which I can understand, but I didn't think about that before, because that has to do with their childhood and the way they're programmed, because we're not the same person. We're different humans. And so just having the understanding of where they're coming from makes me just, first of all, makes it easier for me. And then from that, both of you can come to some sort of conclusion together. That's what happened with one of my friends. We're very different. She's someone who always says what she needs when she needs it, opposite of me, of kind of holding back. And so she'll also sometimes say it in a more, let's say, passionate voice, less caring about how it's received. And she knows that she needs to work on that. And I know I need to work on doing that more, right? So we really have something to learn from one another, which is a gift, which is a beauty, because since we've spoken about this, we can then practice with each other. I do want to say this though, even though I've gone on a tangent again. If you're in a situation where you feel, let's just give the example that I gave before, I don't feel seen, or I don't feel heard, or I don't feel understood in a situation. Let's say you get triggered, and then you just take a deep breath and you ask yourself, why did I just get triggered? Let's say it is, I don't feel like this person is understanding me. When you get triggered, my friend, when she gets triggered, she'll go out, right? On this is what my mom used to do as well. When she feels triggered, she will go at the other person. When I get triggered, I'll go inward and I'll get sad. So we have different ways of, when we get triggered, what we do with it. But when we get triggered, which I think it's almost impossible not to get triggered when you're in a relationship of any kind, a deep relationship, at some point, ask yourself, for instance, let's say I feel like I'm not being understood. The question I need to ask myself in that moment is, do I understand me? Do I understand what I'm trying to say? When I've done this exercise, it feels so good, because then when I can understand me, when I can see that, well, I understand me. I understand why, whatever it is. That's the beauty of this self-development work. Then I don't need other people to understand me, because I understand me. And this is a whole other podcast episode topic, but It's just a beautiful little exercise that you potentially can do when you feel triggered next time. Ask yourself, why did I get triggered? Oh, it's because I feel like I wasn't being understood. Well, do I understand me? Moving on to step number 4, which is detaching from others' opinions. And that's in alignment with what I just shared, right? Do I understand me? Because we can't control how other people are around us. All we can control is us, how we feel, how we show up, who we are as humans. Are we living in integrity, in authenticity? And instead of focusing on, do they like how I handle this situation? It's more, do I like how I handle this situation? So if you just set your first boundary and you're like, oh no, they hate me now. Ask yourself, am I proud of the way I'm showing up as a human right now? And if the answer is yes, remind yourself of that constantly. Take some deep breaths and remind yourself, this is how I do want to be as a human. I respect and admire myself for how I handle this, for how I showed up for this. So really, it's hard, but it's a practice like anything else, detaching from other people's opinions of you. I just want to share, I post on social media every day. I get so much hate. And in the beginning, I would want everyone to like me. Please like me. Don't say anything negative about a post I made. Today, I get hate every day. I get some sort of negative comment every day. But you know what? It gets better over time. It's a practice. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. It's a bigger challenge for me when it's someone that's close to me. But that's where I'm so grateful that I am learning to more and more right away bring it up so that we can speak about it and come to some sort of resolution. Certain things, my mom and I were super close. Certain things we just disagree on. But it's okay that we disagree on that. And that's been a learning lesson in itself for me to detach from the fact that everything mom says isn't true. I mean, in my teenage years, I definitely felt that way. We had a period where it was not great. But since we've, let's say, gotten a more grown up relationship, understanding that even though I respect her in so many areas and want her opinion in so many areas, there's like certain areas where I still will respect her, obviously, but it's just we have different opinions and that's okay. Step 5 is start choosing discomfort over regret. And I use this when it comes to fitness. It feels hard to do a sprint or do a leg day or do something challenging at the gym. But not having gone and feeling miserable because you really needed to move and also you were going to feel so much better, and also now you feel like eating all the sugary things because you feel tired and sluggish. Regret feels harder. And every time you choose discomfort of showing up at the gym anyway, even though you don't feel like it, you build up your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-respect, because it feels good to get outside of your comfort zone and do something that's hard and connect with that inner strength that you got inside of you. And the same goes with people pleasing. Every time you stand in your authentic power and you just share your truth in a loving way, you can still do it in a loving way. It feels damn good. And you're going to build up your confidence and self-respect and self-esteem in a new way that just is going to leave you feeling so good within. The 6th step that I think is important is surrounding yourself with people who respect your growth. And we kind of touched on this already, but pay attention to how the people make you feel in your life. This is the reason I had to have this conversation with my friend. It's because since that big thing happened in my life that taught me such a big lesson, I've really been paying attention to how different people make me feel. And I knew that I had to have this conversation because I've decided I no longer want certain things in my life, and I need to start setting these boundaries. And it's so hard, but it's really important. And I think with anything else I share all the time when it comes to fitness, when that's what the topic of our conversations is, it'll compound effect in so many ways in your life, and you'll attract more people who are in alignment with this life that you want to live. And I just want to say that I think Every single time, like I mentioned before, I've had one of these conversations with someone in my environment where I've been really fearful of speaking up and saying my truth. I've gotten so much closer with them. It actually feels better for them that I'm living in alignment. Always. It's always brought me closer to the people when we've had these deep conversations. It's vulnerability is the thing that can strengthen relationship the most, right? And if there's someone in your life that doesn't make you feel good, I would start with taking full ownership and healing your people pleaser tendencies, because if you start setting boundaries, it may completely shift the dynamics of the relationships. And if that person doesn't want you when you are not just a yes woman or a yes man all the time, then you should really question if it's good for you. Is it good for you? But take ownership. They're not doing anything wrong. You are allowing it. Ownership is such a big, important thing in life. I saw this sentence that said, build relationships based on mutual respect, not guilt-driven obligation. I thought it was powerful. Step 7 is just trusting that the right people will stay. Every time I've had to set a boundary or have a conversation or start just acting a little bit differently, which would be more in alignment with myself, I've had this fear of rejection in whatever way that meant for me at the time. But just trust that those people that are around you can take it, that they want the best for you, and know that the right people are going to continuously show up in your life when you act out of alignment with you. Because you, to the core of your soul, are a beautiful human being. And the more that you step into your true, authentic self, the more aligned connections are going to show up in your life. My hope is that if you take one thing away from today, it's that you just literally simply start with step 1, which is figuring out what you want in your life. Journaling on how would it look if you were only focusing on what you wanted and you were not thinking of anyone else. And I'm sure that some things you're going to continuously want to do out of the love and heart of your soul, right? Obviously, you're a good human. You want to do good things for other people. But I'm also sure that there may be, if you are a people pleaser trying to recover from it, that there potentially still are things in your life that you say yes to, that you do, that you, in ways that you act that aren't in aligned with that version of you. So grab a journal and figure out, if no one else's opinion mattered, how would you live your life? What would you do? Who would you be? How would you act? How would you show up? And then little by little, you can start implementing these different steps into your life. Baby steps. It's taken me a long time and I'm still working on it, but it's a beautiful journey. If you want to join me on this beautiful journey and also do my workouts and get all my recipes and get my nutritional guide and join the most incredible like-minded community on earth, we talk about conversations like this all the time and just how to improve, and we keep each other accountable and have these deep connections with completely non-judgmental, open hearts. If you're someone who doesn't have that, this community would be for you. Or if you just want to become a badass athlete and get in the best shape of your life, we do that too. I'll put the link below to join my next upcoming challenges. I hope you go out there today and act in just a little bit more alignment with what maybe potentially you've previously done. Share it with a friend if you feel like she could benefit from listening and hearing these words. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being here. And as always, remember that in order for you to grow, you have to challenge your norm.